Hey guys, this is my cultural presentation. Unfortunately, I am still coughing, so maybe avoid headphones and also forgive any lapses in my voice as I try to hold them in. Cool. So, the Balkan region is one of extreme diversity in both religion and ethnicities. When focusing on Bosnia specifically, there are three main religions that are practiced. According to a census taken in 2017, 51% identified as Muslim, 31% as Orthodox Christian, and 15% as Roman Catholic. From there, it further splits into various combinations of ethnicities and religions. Due to the high Muslim population in Bosnia, it stands out to other majority Muslim countries as a home in Europe. However, Bosnia receives heavy fire for the liberal, almost secular way of practicing Islam. It's widely known that Bosnia favors culture over religion, and so, in a stereotypical Slavic trope, the popular pastimes are drinking, smoking, and most recently, tattooing, all of which are forbidden in the Quran. So, why does Bosnia identify so strongly with Islam if many of the core beliefs are ignored? So, we turn to history for this. Islam was introduced to the Balkan region in the 15th century by the Ottoman Empire. In that period, it was greatly embraced. And by the early 1600s, two-thirds of the population was Muslim under the name of Bosnjak. During this time, Islam was practiced devoutly, with many following in a fashion similar to Turkish. From there on, Islam developed into a more loose interpretation of how to practice. Drinking and smoking were common, but used for medicinal practice rather than recreational. Tattoos were overall rejected, as the representation came mostly from gangs and criminals. In 1882, the official Islamic community of Bosnia and Herzegovina was established, which allowed scholars and practicers to discuss and debate certain topics. Debates were essential for creating this liberal Islam that Bosnia is now known for. For example, in 1928, the face veil was the main topic of debate. It was argued that it was more for traditional historical tradition rather than religion, so changing the practice would not violate Islam. At this point, many women had been wearing what we know as a burqa, and would continue to do so until Yugoslavia became dominated by a communist government. Under socialist Yugoslavia, religious expression changed drastically. Religion was greatly reduced to a private household practice and was expected to be not to be expressed anywhere else. In 1950, the Women's Anti-Fascist Front fought and won for the legal ban on face veils. Many women felt uncomfortable and ended up isolated in their homes, feeling unsafe and fearful. However, eventually, women acclimated, and this marked the biggest change in religious expression. Gradually, Bosniaks were drawn to alcohol as a recreational hobby, and music from this period is a pretty good representation of how the attitude and mindset had changed. Both men and women were found in bars and pubs, and religion was considered more of an ancestral identifier and was openly tolerated but not practiced. In fact, Bosnia prided itself on being one of the most religiously tolerant countries. Again, everything changed after the war in the 90s. A sort of religious revolution occurred. More women were becoming fully covered, and more men were rejecting the pull to bars and alcohol, instead finding themselves in mosques for Friday prayer. Being identified as Bosnjak was more important than ever, as people struggled to grieve after the war and losing many relatives. It became a source of pride. On top of that, as Saudi Arabia provided extensive donations to help rebuild Bosnia after the war, a new sect of Islam was introduced to the region called Wahhabism, which promotes extreme conservatism and devotion. And yet, simultaneously, because the population had immigrated and had children in other countries, religion became even less important. More people wanted to bond over what they had in common as part of the region, rather than what had separated and essentially started the war as different religions and ethnic groups. Alcoholism, smoking, tattoos, piercing all came back to bridge the gap between ethnic groups. Because if nothing else, everyone can bond over rakia and a packet of Sarajevska drina. Balkan diaspora is a demographic entirely different. They seem to be more of a hit or miss in terms of religious devotion. Many seem to, again, treat religion as a private relationship, and as such use it more of an ethnic identifier. It's more common to see a more open mindset towards tattoos and piercings in this diaspora, who want to demonstrate their pride, often by tattooing the outline of their country or flag. Many are also more likely to turn to drugs rather than alcohol, and unanimously reject pork as another identifier. In this case, diaspora both fit in and don't fit in with the more religious versus secular population in Bosnia and in the Balkans.